Welcome back to the Photos by Mikey podcast. My name is Mikey, and I'm super excited because I have my good friend Eric Terrill here on the podcast. So Eric actually lives in Riverside as well. So we're both local wedding photographers. Well, both photographers. We do a little bit of everything. So I'm excited to have him on the podcast. So it's his first time on the podcast. So give yourself a quick introduction for those people that don't know you, Eric.
So my name is Eric Terrill. I'm also in Riverside, downtown Riverside. I'm on missions. I'm not pretty like in the heart of it. I've been doing photography for almost 14 years. So I did some school for photography and then did some photography in the military. But professionally started doing photography in 2012. Yeah, 2012. So like 12 years of actual professional photography. And that's like doing bookings and the whole nine and whatnot. But yeah, and that I've done quite a lot of everything. Like I can list off quite a list to say the least. I went on the deep end. I said, let me just go into it and see where it goes. And I started doing mainly like photo shoots, like grad photo shoots and stuff like that. And then I started doing like different studio style things and whatnot. So it got pretty intense to where it was like, hey, anything that comes, I'm going to take it and learn from that. So there were a couple things I was like, I don't want to do that and kind of went from there. But yeah, so I have a pretty good knowledge base as to what I like and what I don't like and what's the trends are and what's common nowadays in photography and whatnot. But I also did video for a while too. So I did like 4 years of school for video. So I learned like the far end of like CS5 of Premiere Pro, like on CD, like way back, and then Final Cut as well. So like way back when we didn't even have IMAX.
Wow. So how did you like get into photography? Like, was there a time where like something inspired you to get into photography? Like, tell us maybe about your very first experience, like getting to photography.
So I got into photography just from messing around with this old camera my grandpa gave me, and he was gonna throw it away. And I was like, hey, can I have that? And he's like, yeah, if you want. It's just a piece of junk. It was an old film camera. So I kept it and I learned how to use it. It was a Minolta SLT 101, which is really old school, like manual, everything. And so I learned how to use it. And then you could still buy film at the time. So I started buying film and shooting on film at school. And then we had our photography classes, whatnot, where you could develop film. So I went full manual and learned all that. The crazy part about that camera is it had a uranium battery inside. It was from Japan. There was actually outlawed here, but I didn't know that till I looked it up. I was like, oh, maybe I need to put a new battery. And they're like, oh, this has radiation. Yeah, it was made in Japan, way back when, from 1955. So anyway, the whole camera was manual. It just had a light meter on the inside, and it was powered by that little battery. So you had to dial your shutter speed, your aperture, and the film was kind of like your ISO, like the sensitivity. So I went on the deep end of having to learn, hey, how does this work? And then from there, kind of started learning more and more like the science of photography and how to do pictures and edit, develop. But the main turning point was when my grandfather passed away. I still had the camera, right? So mind you, this camera was his, but I'd never seen any of the pictures he'd taken. So when he passed away, they started getting rid of his stuff, and they came across this big, giant treasure chest of a suitcase, and they couldn't get it open. Finally, they got it open. And it was just this giant collection of photos that he had taken over the years. And nobody had copies. It was just, those are the only ones, and that was it. And some of them had writing on the back, but he was always known for taking pictures around, anywhere he went. And we come to find out he had documented like his whole life with all the different branches of the family and whatnot. So it was kind of cool. So I'm seeing all this. I'm like, family I'd never even known. And I'm like, wow, like he went everywhere. He was all over in like Mexico and different places like that. But, from that point, I was like, hey, like this is cool. Like otherwise, I wouldn't have known any of this. Like I wouldn't have known all these different people, and I was able to reconnect with some family like that. And so that from there, I was like, hey, I like the idea of being able to capture something that I wasn't there for, and kind of move forward from that. So it just naturally became like, hey, this is cool. Like take a picture and you save it. So which kind of seems like a little nuanced now because like everybody has phones. But at the time, that wasn't a thing. Like that was before the Motorola Razr. There wasn't even you didn't have cameras on your phone. So that's kind of like that was the main thing. And then after that, I ended up joining the military. And after I finished those college classes and whatnot, I ended up financing a camera at the PX. I'm sure
Oh,
you know
no
that
way.
one.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Where were you stationed at the time?
I was stationed in March Air Force Base for 3 years.
Okay.
And then after that, Camp Pendleton for 5.
Oh, so you financed it at March?
Yeah, so
At the
you could
PX
buy, you
over
could
there?
get like a credit card.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so I financed it on the credit card. I'm like, I'm gonna buy. You know, it's like I want my own.
Do you still remember the camera?
T3i.
T3i? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was like, you know what? I just really want one. And I told my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, I was like, hey, I bought this, you know, camera I wanted it, and so I just bought it, right? So I was like, I want to learn the digital side because I had only really done like video cameras, like digital video cameras, but all film cameras in high school. So I was like, let me learn the digital side, and so I'm learning, going about it, and I'm working. I'm in the elevator, right, at work, and this lady's talking to the other lady, and she's like, "Oh, I have my wedding's this weekend," and the lady asked her, did you find your photographer? She's like, "No, I couldn't afford one," and I turned around and said, "You know what? I'm learning photography. I'm pretty good." I said, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't go to your wedding. I said, I won't charge you anything. I said, you just can't. I can't have you go without having your wedding photographed. So she was like, all right, cool. Like, so she gave me a chance. She's like, go for it. So I shot that whole wedding. I hybrid shot a wedding in 2015 with a T3i and an Osmo Mobile in my other hand.
Oh, no way.
And so I'm shooting video, and I have a little Sony recorder on the speaker, and that was just the bare essentials to the hybrid shoot. So I'm doing the Osmo Mobile with my iPhone 8, I think, at the time, which is still, I think, 4K.
Yeah.
More or less. And I shot it with, I got a good 35, like f2, so it was a solid lens. And man, it came out like only applying like my fundamentals and whatnot, and it came out great. So it ended up being not rain, but it started raining ashes because 2 houses down, the house has burned.
Oh my
God! It was in the middle of burning. It was actively burning. So it was raining ashes. So but they don't remember any of that because I was able to kind of get the best pictures I could. It was a backyard wedding, you know, nothing crazy, but at the end of the day, they have like their solid wedding photos, and you would never know the difference. Actually, I think I have it on my profile. But so I was like, hey, this is important. You know, like I didn't get paid, but it's important. You know, what I did was like capture that day for them, and forever they'll have it forever. Especially because they had young kids and whatnot. So I look back at that picture, and I had to learn how to do skin retouching because she had a really big scar right here.
Oh.
And I was like, I was in there trying to get my little MacBook Pro from 2014. So it was overheating. I'm trying to like delete the scar, and it's just not trying to do it.
You're on Photoshop at the time?
Yeah, I was on Photoshop and ended up doing it. But yeah, so it was a good time. But that was the turning point. I was like, hey, I can provide this service. Like I can do something I really love and provide a service. And that's where it kind of all started. I was like, hey, let me see what else I can do. Started doing grads and maternity, and it just skyrocketed from there.
That's awesome. So, I know we talked offline earlier about like you've done a little bit of everything, different genres, right? So like after all your photo sessions you've done from, you know, different genres, like what's your favorite genre of photography to do? It could be anything.
It's rough. I think honestly is couples. Couples, like young couples. That's my favorite because I have a couple of customers. No pun intended. I have a few customers that I have done from their couples to engagement to wedding to maternity to newborn to first birthday, and so like I have about like 4 of those, and that just to see them grow and kind of like the whole process, like money aside and all that, it's just like it's saying, hey, like all these milestones, like it's important to them to kind of mark them and kind of go from there. So definitely couples, because it can lead, you know, to everything. That's where it all starts, like that's where the roots start. I second is definitely weddings, because it's just the high tempo of everything. It's like, hey, this is only happening once. You can't mess up. That's definitely my second favorite, but couples for sure.
Awesome. That first wedding you did, are you still in touch with that couple?
I could reach them if I needed to, yeah, but they don't really shoot with me. They moved to, I think, LA, far into LA. But I know that she still has those pictures on her profile, and I'm like, you know, it's still better than nothing, you know.
Right, because I still remember my first wedding. It was my cousin's anniversary. Like they didn't really have like a big wedding because they got married in the Philippines, and so when they moved here, they really wanted to kind of have a bigger wedding. And so at the time I was just doing like, like portrait sessions, grad sessions myself. And I've never done a wedding. I mean, I've been to weddings, right? But it's different when you're behind the camera and trying to understand what's going to happen, or the timeline, everything. There's so many factors. And so I binged watched like YouTube for like 2 weeks. As much
what to do, what not to do.
What to do, like things to expect, watching tutorials. And then like, so I ended up actually going to the camera store. Shout out to IE Photo Rentals in Pomona.
Okay.
So I rented all my gear because I only had, I think at the time I only had like a T5, I think. And I think a 50. And so I'd rented another camera body, and then like I think I rented a 7200 and then a 2470. And then I rented a flash. I didn't even have a flash at the time. So I think, I mean, I lost money. You know what I mean? Because they didn't really pay me anything because I just wanted to try it. And then, but man, for me it was more about just the fun of it. It was just fun, like like just being there and everybody's so happy and fun. And so for me, like I still, if I had to choose a genre, I would still do weddings. It's just for me, that's what I love to do. But if I had to choose a close second, it would have to be probably kind of street photography.
Okay.
Yeah, I still like taking like stuff on the street. I don't do it as often just because weddings are like my primary business. But yeah, like weddings and like couples, like you said, are just they're just fun. So let's talk about gear. Because a lot of people that listen to our podcast are always like, okay, what gear are you currently using? So what's your current setup right now in 2024?
So I'm still running the Sony A7R III and the Sony A7 III.
Okay.
Mind you, I have 100,000 shutters on each of them. So it's like I know the cameras inside and out, so they still function. But customers don't know the difference, honestly. Like, just as long as you know the functionality of it, it's kind of what's important. What's really important. On the other hand, I love gear. Like, I want to upgrade, but I'm always getting lenses and flashes. If it comes to the question of the audience wanting to know about gear, you're better off sticking to what you have and just mastering it. Because once you can do that, like I can pick up any Canon, I can pick up a Nikon, and I can use it. And that's kind of where things changed for me personally, once I learned like flash and how to use triggers and off camera, all that stuff, and different lenses, the effects of the different lenses, low light, all that, knowing that is so much more important than having one like L lens. It's just, it doesn't communicate very well. Like you have to, I remember like when I first bought my first L lens, I hadn't mastered flash. So I was still wondering like, okay, what's the problem? Like what's going on here? And then ended up figuring out how the flash works and mastering the shutter speed and high speed sync, all that stuff. Then that's where that L lens started to shine, because of like, okay, you're getting the best of everything. There has to be like that balance.
Right. Just to clarify, L lens, a professional lens.
Yeah, L lens is like top tier lenses for sure, where it's like you won't really have any issues. It's all kind of operator error at that point.
Yeah, I think that's maybe something that a lot of new photographers kind of, they get to like that. What do you call that? There's a term for buying too much gear. Because I got into that that space where I was just like hoarding gear. I would just try stuff. I
think you might still be there.
Because I mean, and eventually I started renting like everything because I was just addicted. I was renting. Name it. I probably tested every 85 millimeter at the camera rental store in Pomona because I wanted to like see the differences, But yeah, I think a lot of photographers that start out, they don't really focus on like perfecting the settings of the camera, right? Learning manual, learning how to shoot in off camera or different lighting conditions. And then eventually you can add to that where you buy better gear. Because I mean, I could still pick up like an old Canon 5D Mark I and probably still kill it. Like, you know what I mean? And I love that camera. Like, even though it's like, I think it's like 10 megapixels. I can't remember the megapixels on that thing. But the look of that camera is just amazing. So let me ask you another question. Is like, if someone was going to start a photography and they want to become a professional photographer this year, what camera body and lens would you recommend?
So I always say, always go based off of how committed you are. I've actually been asked this before. Go off of how committed you are. If you are planning to be like this, like where you are full-time making money, and that is the goal, then invest as much as you possibly can without getting in trouble into that first camera. That definitely there. So going with a full frame sensor and a solid lens, like nothing too crazy, not 3 or 4 lenses, but one solid lens, maybe not a kit lens, and start from there, but understand that camera and build off of it. Because I can tell you I've had at least like 35, 40 lenses, and I think I only have like 6 right now, but I've been through it. I've wasted money and can't get it back. But yeah, you can definitely go too crazy with it. If you can master it, get one good camera and master it, even if it's full frame. If you could start off with a crop sensor too, which is like the lower end consumer cameras. As long as you can master that, if you fully understand it, that's when you're ready to level up. So specifically which camera body, I don't know, because there's so many out there depending on which brand you're going with. I will say I am even though I shoot Sony, I'm Canon biased because I started on Canon. The colors are just something you don't have to worry about as much. Like you can edit if you want or if you need to, but the colors are pretty spot on from the get-go, so you're not really too worried about that. But performance now with Canon is really great. I don't think there's really much you can go wrong with. Maybe like the RP you wouldn't want to get because of there are some performance issues there, but the 60 Mark, or no, what is it? The R6 Mark II? What is it?
Well, they first came out with the R, right? And then they have the R6 now and then R6 Mark II.
Yeah, R6 Mark II.
I actually had the Canon R for a little bit, but then when the R6 came out, the original, which has some technical issues, and so in my opinion, what I would recommend, again, it doesn't matter what brand, but definitely dual SD cards. And so the Canon R only had one SD card, which was I still shot it in some scenarios, but I always had another body. So just in case, because I've actually had a couple times where the card had issues, and luckily I had a redundant backup.
I've had two total card failures. And I always shoot redundant RAW on both cards, no matter what. And it's tedious. It is tedious. But I've also had one instance where a handful of files were corrupted within just one card. And I have like a pretty intense system of like how I annotate, okay, which card had an issue, whatever. So I know, okay, avoid this, but always two. And that's when I first shot my first wedding, I had a single SD card in my camera, which if you don't understand the gravity of the situation, if you're shooting with one SD card and it fails, the whole card is gone, the whole day is gone. So to the point where it's like, not only did you lose everything, but if you got paid for it, you can be sued. Even if it's like $50, like if it's a contract that you're being contracted to provide a service and you lose it, there's nothing they can do to get that back, and that's where you're in trouble. So it's extremely important. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm not going to do weddings until I have a camera that has 2 SD cards. So, and that's when I decided to pull the trigger on it, and I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, I know how to use it. I can use it for weddings, but I can't safely go into weddings without this feature. And she's like, all right, yeah, go for it. But yeah, I'd consider that critical. If you're going into weddings, 100% you can't not have it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say weddings for sure, just because it's like it's a one-time thing. Those are one of the events like you just can't redo, right? I mean, portrait sessions, grad sessions, I mean, it may be more of like a time issue. Like you can probably redo it if the client's willing. But yeah, on a wedding day, it's like, okay, they're not going to spend the money again to have another wedding. You know what I mean?
No, it's not. Yeah.
But yeah, let me ask you, talking about gear, in terms of lenses now. So lenses, going back to someone that's going to start out as a professional photographer, would you recommend any specific type of lens, or maybe just getting a kit lens?
So nowadays the kit lenses are pretty inexpensive. It's almost kind of like might as well just get it just so you can tinker with it and mess around with it.
Right.
So it's not a bad idea to get a kit lens. Like once you're at kind of like where we're at, where it's kind of like it's just it's not worth having it because we're not going to really use it, but it's a good learning tool for sure on the kit lens, because you can see 35 or 24 millimeters to 55, I think it's 18 to 55 is most kit lenses. You can kind of see, I like wide, or I like 55, and that's kind of where you can learn. And then when you decide, hey, I'm going to get a nice prime, which is like a fixed focal length, then you decide, hey, do I shoot wide more often? Do I shoot mid or tight? It's like I shoot a lot of tighter, like 85 plus lenses, and that's kind of where you have to decide, okay, depending. So with that kit lens, you can use it to say, hey, what kind of photographer am I? What do I like to use? What's the look I like? And then based off of that, which you can actually look at your metadata and say, hey, I'm always shooting at 50 or I'm always shooting at 24 and kind of go from there. And then you decide, hey, I want a nicer version of this, something with like a wider aperture, and you can go with like a 24 1.8 or something like that. But it really just depends on what you're shooting and kind of like what you're planning on shooting, like where you're going with it. So I think the kit lens is, although it's kind of like a short-lived tool, it's very important because you can learn a lot with it and decide, okay, what do I want? Like, so if you're a sports photographer and you have a 55, you're gonna like, this isn't zoom in far enough, and you can kind of go from there. But I think, yeah, it's good. I think definitely you can't go wrong with the 50. I personally wish I would have started with a 35 because I had like 2 different 50s and then I got to 35. So I think 35 is almost like perfect for most things. And then you get into like an 85. The 35-85 combo is just, it's almost flawless. So, but yeah, definitely kit lens is doable for sure. You can do most things and you wouldn't know what how expensive the kit lens was and get really good shots. Even using flash and, dialing up your aperture to make it sharper, you can do a lot. So.
What's your favorite lens right now?
Oh, that stuff. Honestly, I've never. So I love 50 because I learned on 4 different 50s. They're just different brands, but they're all film for film cameras. So I personally love 50. I feel like it's almost exactly what your eye sees. So it's almost like it's like natural vision. So when you see something, it's kind of the most accurate. There's not too much distortion or anything like that. I shoot mostly everything on 85 because I do a lot of portraits and family sessions. But yeah, 100% 50 is my favorite.
Okay.
Because
awesome.
It's really is like when you put it up to your eye, it's almost exactly where your eyes focus. Like, so your peripherals are kind of always out of focus, but 50 almost seems like what's right there all the time. So.
Right. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Let's talk about maybe education, because I know you said you went to film school, right?
They were like college courses.
So like if someone again is starting out, like what would you recommend in terms of resources? Should they go to school or should they find someone to, mentor them? What's your recommendation?
So I did 4 years of college courses for photography, editing, video, and I didn't pay for them, luckily, because I was, just using like tuition assistance and whatnot. I learned 90% of my photography and flash from YouTube, and it's quite a lot, like almost maybe 3 years worth of school and maybe 4 months of YouTube binging, of just learning everything, seeing how it works, and then applying it through trial and error with my own cameras. And I don't think it's really worth it to get into debt to go to school, because you can learn, you can try so much on your own. So like you're going to spend who knows how many thousands at school. You can spend $1,000 on a camera and go try it out, see if you even like it, and maybe not make a bad decision, because there's a lot of headaches that come with being a photographer, like a lot of other things that you don't really see, and then maybe you don't like those things, which I know a couple of people who decided, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. But yeah, I think for education wise, there's so much free knowledge now, as with everything else. You can go to YouTube and learn and kind of see how things work. But the education part's good. I'm not gonna lie. It's it's kind of useless now from what I did. It's like CS5, like so long ago. It's like they have all the free tutorials online now, but it's good because I did learn concepts of photography, color science, how different colors blend and don't blend. What was the other one? Just the general rules of photography, like the grid lines, rule of thirds, all the stuff that you probably don't hear about on Instagram.
Right, exactly.
Those 3 lines that you see on the camera, that's where your eyes are attracted to.
Right.
Yeah, education can be kind of whatever you want it to be. If you were super serious, like, hey, I love this, go for it. Go get your college degree and go into it. But just know you can do just as much. And me being honest, I do just as much as somebody who has a bachelor's in photography. I can maybe not go work in Hollywood, but I can work a camera just as good. I understand concept of lighting and those different things. So it all depends on how deep you want to dive into it.
Right. It is interesting because I had a good conversation with my barber.
Oh yeah.
And I asked him, like, so do you go to school to become a barber? And technically they need a license, right? A barber license. So when we look at photography in general, like, if you're just starting like a small small business as a photography, maybe like, local photographer here, like you don't technically need to have a license. I mean, a photography license. There's nothing that requires us to, sign up with the state or sign up for like a board exam. There's nothing. So, like you were saying, yeah, absolutely right. Because I started just on my own, right? Just learning through YouTube, and then I shadowed a ton of other photographers, and I learned a lot from them because there's more into understanding like also the business side, right? Or even just the technical side, because there's other stuff that you have to learn besides the camera and the gear. Is like, how do you communicate with clients? How do you pose to clients? How to find the right location. I mean, there's so much more that comes into it. And I didn't know that until I started shadowing other photographers. I was like, oh man, that's a good point. Like, how do you put them in certain situations, how to understand lighting.
Oh yeah.
And then you just practice and practice and practice, and eventually you get better and better because it is a skill.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, absolutely right. Like I would highly recommend, if you just want to get started, just start going on YouTube. I mean, it's free. There's so much information now. Even when I first started, like, I mean, there was a few really, good YouTube channels that did like in depth, like, like Frono, I mean,
oh yeah,
super,
Frono,
especially when you want to learn like just your camera, like, I mean, hours and hours of free stuff on there. So you don't technically have to pay for online course. I mean, they're great too. You could do, I know, there's like Udemy now, like Skillshare. I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah, Skillshare.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like online resources. I mean, I also rented books too from the library, but they're so outdated. Like they haven't.
I was actually just gonna say that there's a couple books out there that are pretty wild.
Yeah, they're just old though. Like that's the thing too. Like you guys have to keep in mind, like camera technology continues to change, and new brands come out. So when you read these books, they're referencing like, cameras are 10, 20 years old, and so you may not even be able to find those cameras, or you probably can on the used market. So actually, let's talk about that. So, would you recommend someone buying on the used market?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question. I like my stuff new.
Okay.
But only because I take them into a professional environment. So I know, hey, this lens hasn't been dropped and it's going to function. If it has a catastrophic failure, then I blame the manufacturer. But I've dropped one lens before, and oh man, that hurt my heart. But I was like, I know from that moment, I was like, I'm never taking this lens into a shoot, that I need to provide for a client.
Right.
So that's kind of my perspective on that, which is probably the worst thing that anybody in the audience can hear. If you are learning, if you're doing something that's not a high stakes shoot, 100% go for the used market. You can get, like, I've sold most of and when I don't want it, I usually sell it to the used market for someone else to use. And, I always tell them like, hey, it works great. That's, if you trust me or not, but yeah, you can get a lot of really good gear on the used market and learn from there. But when I still stand by that, if you're going into a professional shoot, take a brand new kit with you that you can trust.
100% agree. I mean, when I first started, I didn't have a lot of money, so I did rent the lenses because I knew I need something professional. But eventually, once it becomes established, I'm like, okay, I can't be buying you stuff because I don't know what the history of that camera, the lens. And so, but of course, when you buy a camera, usually they have like warranty. So you should be fine as long as you make sure you take care of the camera and you don't do anything stupid with the camera. But yeah, if you do drop the camera, like, I mean, there's so much technology that goes into that camera, especially the mirrorless cameras now. So you have to be very careful. But yeah, let's talk about maybe some of your inspiration. Like, is there any like photographers that that you looked up to, or any types of paintings or art that inspires you still today?
There's not the one I guess two photographers that inspired me a lot was Peter McKinnon. You probably heard of, obviously you've heard of him. I started watching him when he had 2,000 subscribers. So, which is like way back when, and I watched every video, so I learned a lot from him. His style is very different from mine. I don't do like that much like landscape, but he was kind of like a jack of all trades, like kind of how I describe myself. He did a little bit of everything. He did stock video and stock photo and all kinds of stuff, and now he's kind of his own brand and everything now. So which is like, hey, that's what kind of inspires me, is that you can start here and it can become so much. And like he just shot with Red Bull. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I'm like, it can go as far as you want it. So just depending on how much effort you're willing to put into it. But so that he definitely inspires me a lot. And the other guy is Manny Ortiz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I learned everything Flash from him.
Amazing.
Yeah, I actually met him once in person.
Oh, did you? Where at?
In San Francisco, as B&H? No, Sammy's camera in San Francisco.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and he was coming down from I think what is it, Chicago, New York? I forget it. Where his
I know
hometown
he's.
is.
I think he's from the East Coast. Definitely
Yeah.
from the East Coast.
He came all the way from over there, and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing a free little meetup over here." And I told my wife, like, "Hey, can I go or can we go?" And she's like, "Let's go. Like, it's free. Like, what's even the question? It's an 8-hour drive, but we're going." We jumped in my little Kia Forte and we drove up there. And yeah, we met him, shook hands with him. I shot Diana with him. It was a pretty cool experience to know, like, hey, this guy's, because I also started watching him like right after he got out of the police department.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew that, but yeah, he was maybe like 5,000 subscribers. Now he's huge, but
Wow.
yeah. Wow. So way back when, and then he, at the point where I met him, he was doing pretty good, on YouTube and whatnot. But I learned everything Flash, like top to bottom, high speed sync from him, from his YouTube videos. And I'm like, so he was a really big inspiration as to, as far as you can go with Flash. And as far as inspiration for photography, I always say, so growing up, I didn't have the best childhood, to say the least, but the very first wedding I attended, I didn't go to my parents or the other marriages that happened, but the very first wedding I attended was my aunt's. And before that, all I really knew was, unfortunately, it was divorce. so I'm like, hey, what is this? Like, we're going to a wedding. This is new. And I'm like, I think like 12 or 13 years old. And I'm like, just understanding the concept of a happy couple, and they're coming together, and it's the whole thing. And me seeing it from a raw perspective of never having encountered that type of environment, I'm like, this is pretty beautiful. Like, this is cool, like, love story, and like they're coming together. And it was a really cool venue. It was like in the middle of the forest. It looked like a fairy tale.
Oh wow, fairy tale. Yeah.
Fairy tale land. Yeah. And yeah, it was pretty cool. And I was like, wow, this is what love is. Kind of like, this is what a marriage and a happy couple is. And ever since then, I'll never forget that place. I should find it. Or really should find it somewhere in the woods. It's actually my aunt.
Here in California?
Yeah, it's in California.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was just so cool, and I'm like, oh, this is what a wedding is, and that was kind of like the standard. And then I remember hearing the shutter of the photographer next to me, and I'm like, what is that? Like, what is that thing? Like, it ended up being a camera. And now looking back, I'm like, wow, that's where it all started for them. They're still going, and that's I see the pictures, and that's kind of remembering that, hey, the photographer's not there anymore, but these pictures are, and I don't even remember most of it, but that just from looking at the pictures, I'm like, yeah, I was there. So that's awesome. A big inspiration as to why I like wedding photography and couples and like the love thing, because there's so much dynamics that can come from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about maybe one of your most challenging photo sessions. Like, I don't know if you can remember, or one that kind of stands out to you that was probably the most difficult, or it could be maybe an environment that you were shooting at, or it could be anything.
I think probably the most difficult. I've had quite a variety. I'll tell you, quite a variety of.
What's the one that stands out right now?
One that stands out the most. There was this wedding, and the officiant, just if you don't know, it's the guy who marries you. He says, "I'm running late," and he said, I'll be like 5 minutes late. 5 minutes turned into 30. 30 turned into an hour and 40. And mind you, at this time, it's dark outside. It's a backyard wedding. And it's like happy couple, super young couple, which is totally fine. Backyard weddings is great. But, they were planning on hey, we're going to be getting married right during sunset. And ended up being pitch black, dark outside. They had no lights. And I was just like, this is going to be difficult. Luckily, me being super prepared in my military mindset, I had like 4 flashes in the trunk. So I said, well, I'm going to set them all up. And they had that, the modeling lamp ended up being our ambient light. So I waited. I was like, I know I've got like a 30-minute battery life on these. So as soon as they're playing the music, I hit the light, and all the lights come on. And still, even then, it's not enough for the ambient. Like, it's a tough lighting scenario. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to have to think of and remember everything I've learned about flash photography, because I'm using 100% flash for this. and ended up being some of my favorite pictures I've taken were from that wedding. And it's funny because I just did their maternity session like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, extremely difficult because I had to remember all the fundamentals on the spot. Like it was a high stakes, like you have to remember everything and you can't mess up. So yeah, that was a good one. I think other than the one with the ashes, that one was pretty interesting too. But yeah, just knowing that, I was like, hey, now I've mastered Flash and I've implemented all those fundamentals good. I was like, I think I can go a lot further. So.
Right. I mean, that just shows you like understanding, everything about your camera, understanding everything about lighting really comes into play in those situations. Because you never know, anything can happen,
100%.
especially on a wedding day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there was a couple of things where like I put one of the flashes like kind of angled a little too high up, so it was hitting me right in the lens. So I quickly had to just go into the settings, turn that one off, and keep shooting. So just all those things like it was happening during the kiss. So it's like you have to really just be dialed in 100% for us for like weddings here for sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into some fun stuff now. Yeah. All right, so according to the Knot, these are some trends that's happening. And again, I just want to hear your thoughts on that. So for 2024, these are some common trends that's like been seen on social media, right? So number one, blurred action wedding photography, where I don't know if you've seen some photos where the bride and groom are in the middle, and then everybody kind of just runs around them. Yeah. So or some photos where they're just like walking and then it's blurred, right? Yeah. So what's your thought on that? Do you like that or you don't like that?
So, I mean, everything I've ever learned was get the picture as sharp as possible. So it just goes against everything I've ever learned. Yeah, even pixel peeping, if you're watching this and pixel peeping, you're like, is it sharp or is it not? Like, is that 99% sharp or is it 100% sharp? And then the customer asks for like, I want those blurry photos. There's no training or school or anything that can teach you that. It's trial and error. You have to, it's a 1/15 of a second or 1/10 of a second and hope to God it comes out.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's cool because when I opened that, going back to that briefcase of my grandpa's I opened up, there were a lot of images in there like that because he's taking pictures and the cameras didn't have the technology that they have now. So he's using the lower shutter speed because the camera's telling him to, and they're coming out a little blurry. And that's the nostalgia from that. Like, us understanding, the technology at the time of that camera, this is the best that you could get. And now people are eager for that because they see like different magazines posting images like that, and they're using nostalgic vibes and, from what is it, like 80s, 70s kind of a thing that they had back then. So I think it's cool. I personally haven't done it myself just recently, but I think it's cool that people are kind of looking back and enjoying a type of photography or genre of or style, I should say, of photography that was not intended before. It just happened because of poor, I guess, equipment back in the day, or not poor equipment, but just the equipment at the time didn't have the ability to capture the sharpest images. So now people enjoy it and they like it. So as long as they like it, the customer's happy. They enjoy their memories. Like, hey, I wanted it like this, and that's all that matters, really.
Absolutely. All right, number 2, disposable cameras.
Oh, that's a tough one. So I've had a couple, maybe 3 or 4 clients recently or friends, family friends. I'm like, hey, you guys need a photographer or whatnot. People say, hey, and we're not booking a photographer. We're doing disposable cameras. And I'm like, you know what? First thing I'm like, oh, that sucks. Financially, I'm like, oh, they're not a client. Second thing, I was like, you know what? No, like this is reigniting that flame of photography for people. Like it's 100%. Like that's what it is. I was like, you know what? Even better. Because like I had a quince who they put a camera on each table, and that's the only shot you got. There's no digitals, and I mean I think they provide digitals now. I think if you get them developed,
they can scan it.
Yeah. And I'm just like, you know what? If that's what you want to do, go for it, because it's reigniting that flame of like, hey, let's take this picture. It gets people up and taking pictures, because like us as me personally. You have to really kind of fight people to like, hey, let's take a picture. Like people forget, like, hey, we're at a special occasion, like because everybody has a camera, they kind of forget like how important it is, and that's especially like a big thing that I advertise. It's like, hey, I'm your personal photographer that's by your side the whole time, and it forces you to have to kind of get up and take more pictures that you wouldn't have otherwise taken. So now if you put a camera on everyone's table, they're like, hey, what's this thing? They have to put hands on it. It's right there. It's like it's a constant reminder. So at first it's like, from a business perspective, it's like, oh, you may not be getting that client, but from a memory perspective and from a photographer, I love the idea, because you can reignite that flame of like, hey, photography and enjoying it and taking pictures, and then it almost reinforces like everyone wanting to take more pictures in the future, and they're probably going to come back later like, hey, we want more pictures, but we want professional pictures. But so I love the idea. I haven't done it myself just yet, but yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I do have an opinion on that and disposable cameras. I do agree with you. Like it creates an environment, especially at the event, where it encourages people to take photos. But on the other side, it's like if you're having a wedding, right? I mean, don't you want professional photos, like someone with creativity? Because I mean, as you know, professional photographers, like taking a photo is just more than taking a photo. There's other things we do in terms of creativity. So that's my side of it. It's like, okay, you know, just having your friends and family take photos, it's different from us coming on the wedding day and taking those really, you know, crisp, sharp photos, especially like family photos, right? On a professional camera. So that's my take on it. I would still recommend to have that if you want, but still hire someone that's going to be dedicated to capturing your day.
Yeah, honestly, to go off of that, I've never heard of somebody having that at their wedding. I've seen it at like kids' parties or quinceañeras and all kinds of other events. Not a wedding for sure. I haven't heard that. Definitely, even if it's not us, hire somebody. Hire somebody or have somebody who knows what they're doing, and then you can have the film cameras for like a little added bonus, like even if it's just a couple. But yeah, I definitely agree on that. That's pretty crazy to have, just film cameras or disposable cameras at a wedding. It's kind of wild.
or sometimes I've seen where they just basically, I mean, especially for video, like sometimes videos like second thoughts, you know, they'll have like someone with iPhone and just record
the whole thing.
Yeah, record the whole thing.
Nonstop.
Yeah. But it's different with photography. It's so different, right? So, okay, number 3, I guess, is more of a style. Like we're seeing a lot more documentary and photojournalistic style. What's your thoughts on that? Because I know your style. Like, describe your style actually.
I'm very, I should say, prim and proper. Like I'm by the book. Like I try to apply all my like everything I know that's correct about photography. Make sure everything's crisp, clean, nothing's out of place. Because they want, they're paying to look their best. So that's kind of my approach. The documentary style is really cool. It's cool like for certain things. I think if you want that at your wedding, go for it. You can't go wrong with it. Really, it's kind of just that's kind of what we do. Is just document everything on the go. So it's however nice they look is how they get, how they're going to get captured. Unless you're doing like a pre-wedding ceremony or something or session. But yeah, that documentary style is kind of, I don't know. I think for some things, maybe not wedding.
Let me add to that. I've had only one couple who asked me for this style, and it was very interesting because they were very introvert. They didn't even want to do a kissing shot on their engagement session, and they told me specifically, don't pose anyone. I was like, and I'm like, man, this is gonna be fun, but it's gonna be very hard. Like it was the hardest thing because like I'm so used to like posing people, right? Getting people together. Like they didn't want to do like family photos. Like we had to like encourage that because like how are we gonna get your parents together? Like, you know what I mean? Like you want those photos, like so. It was definitely more of a challenge for me because I knew like even if it was documentary, like there's certain photos you want, right? Especially family photos.
Mom with the bride, there's got to be at least I call them the standard. Yeah. They're the essentials. You got to do the essentials and you have fun from there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I want to see that that portfolio for sure.
Yeah, it was at the Velvet Rose, if I'm mistaken.
Okay.
It was the ceremony was all indoors and then the reception's all indoors. Okay. So it kind of had that unique like nostalgic look to it, like vintage look, which is very cool. I think that's probably why they wanted something like that. But in terms of like that style, like I like to incorporate it to my day, but not all the time. Like, you know what I mean? Because for my style, I like people that's kind of like, happy, group hugs, like, like just sometimes I'm in their face, like taking photos. So it wasn't 100% my style, but it was a good experience, definitely.
Yeah,
so.
That's crazy. I have to try that. Maybe
Yeah.
a family party or something one of these days.
Number 4 on the list is drone photography. And so let me just kind of touch on this because recently I've been actually adding that to my portfolio where I actually take a drone shot of the ceremony and the venue. But I haven't really done like where I had maybe the bridal party, like maybe wave of the camera or something like that. I'm not sure if you have any experience.
Yeah, actually, when I shoot video, 100% I incorporate. So as I'm doing the bridal party shots, I have the drone up in the air already, just like ready to go. And even if it's just like a pivot, like they're waving, it's like as they're waving to my camera and I'm taking their pictures, they don't realize that I also already have them in frame and I'm taking their like a video of it. And then I usually just throw it into the video somewhere. But yeah, I like using it. It's kind of like it's modern, it's different. Like, and the cool thing is if you have it, you don't have to use it. So, but if you don't have it, then you can't use it. You can't enjoy it. So I kind of always just throw it up just in case, and just go and see what happens. Like, because there's a lot of people use like a lot of symmetry when they're setting up, especially like outdoor weddings and stuff. So it looks cool. Like you can do like when like you can have the bride walk down the center of like all the benches like by themselves, or even just the flower girl. You can have her run down the benches, and so there's so much you can do from up there, video and photo wise.
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I definitely think it's a must almost. Like you don't have to, but for me it's a must. I really enjoy doing it. So sometimes it's a little bit of a task if you're alone. So, but definitely, I think I like it.
Especially if you're a solo shooter. I mean, even though it's pretty quick, but it still takes time to like get that up in the air, get your composition. So, I mean, you have to wait, and then you have to bring it back down. So, it takes a little bit.
Luckily, they're pretty good nowadays. You can do auto return to home, and then man,
land in your hand.
Yeah, I had the first DJI Mavic, and I was like, I need this in my life. I was like, camera in the air, like no way, I have to have this. And ever since then, I've been shooting in the air, and it's great. Yeah,
that's awesome. I guess film's coming back.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like,
what's your thoughts on like photographers doing both on the day?
On the wedding day?
Yeah.
Oh man, you have to be a master in the digital camera before you can do the film for sure. Yeah, I mean, if you got some free time, if you don't 100% know manual mode in the digital camera, don't waste your time with a film camera, because if you're gonna waste too much time, and you're probably gonna take up precious time on the wedding day that you could have used for something else. So maybe, if you have your manual settings at least dialed in, then go for it, and you can kind of play around with the things here or there. Maybe just limit yourself to a couple rolls or something. But it's great. It's a great time if you understand it. Yeah, definitely the colors, and man, I already want it again.
I know, right? I know, right?
Yeah, it's very nostalgic for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If I could find one, I don't even know where to look now. And I'm sure with the craze, if people are already looking into that, it's probably gonna be hard to find.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of online stores you can buy, but definitely the film, because I did a couple of years ago. I was incorporating into my workflow, but the film itself got almost doubled in price. The film stock.
It's crazy.
So it's like, then you gotta, make sure you're charging accordingly. So so it just depends.
So when you say film, like on the wedding day, like what's your perspective? Is it because like when you're offering it, is like, hey, this is shot on film? Is it just the vibe that people want, like the color? Is it this is different from the digital? Like what kind of gets? Because I haven't heard anyone ask for that.
I've only had a few, and then I only do it for like certain clients that really want it, because it's not really that's not really not my style. But I've had a couple where they actually even let me borrow their film camera, and then I did some. I have a small one. I have a Nikon, but I think a lot of clients that want that, it's like they already know
about it.
Sorry about that. They already know, like they probably have a film camera, or they've seen film wedding photos probably from their parents, and they kind of want something like that. But it is challenging because you're going back and forth, and then you only have so much, stop maybe 20 shots, or maybe depending on how good you are. So it is definitely a challenge on the wedding day.
I'd say definitely, like I said, if you know what you're doing, 100% go for it. Like if you know how to use a digital camera in manual, have a great time. Don't waste the time on the wedding day if you don't have to. Exactly. But the one thing I've been thinking about doing myself, just for fun, or including it as a bonus, is carrying around like the best quality Polaroid I can find, and just fire away and just hand them off and say, hey, these are the Polaroids, and then hey, that's the only copy, and go ahead and have fun with it. But that'd be cool. That's kind of like that immediate, like, hey, I have some pictures right here, right now. I was kind of thinking of doing something like that, and I'm like, that'd be interesting. But the film part, I'm just like, the only thing I can think of that's really different is like colors and like the grain a little bit, like the graininess.
Yeah, definitely the grain and the look. It just looks natural.
Oh, yeah.
Straight from the camera. Like I actually have done that too, where I brought a small Polaroid, where it actually does the print right away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like a 2x2. Like,
yeah.
But it's still kind of cool, you know, to do. So, but definitely that's something like you really have to know what you're doing. You know, for if you're gonna incorporate it to your business. So, the other one was the black and white, like where of course digital, right? But a lot of clients seem to want some of that as well. Like, what's your thoughts on black and white?
So I'm very biased to black and white. I'm very pro black and white because it takes out a lot of the color and the distractions within the image, and you're focusing on only what's really happening in the image. So that's just what's really important. Like the most you're gonna see is like textures and like emotions and like the face. Like you really take in more of what's happening in the picture, and it's I think that's kind of where black and white shines the most. So you're taking that all in. Like I have some really good ones of like mother and son, mother and baby together, like, and that moment already is extremely special, and then you put it black and white, and it really has you hone in on what's happening on this image. You're not distracted by like some weird color in a shirt or anything like that. You're just dialed in. So I definitely think I'm pro black and white. On the other hand, you can get a little carried away. Sometimes you can't do everything in black and white. So I feel like it's more so like the bolder images, kind of like the ones that stand out you can do in black and white, but maybe not everything. I've seen some people have like whole galleries in black and white. I'm like, why?
Yeah, absolutely. Because especially if like they have themed colors, right? You want to show off the colors on the wedding day, because especially when it's very bright, vibrant. Like, that's what they pay the venue for, is that look. So, but yeah, let's get into maybe some advice for a new photographer starting out. What would you recommend them? Should they start a specific niche, or should they try a little bit of everything?
So me personally, what I recommend is just shoot everything. Like when I genuinely started on film, like I was limited to the amount of shots I could take. And I don't know if you started on film or if you're familiar with like that phase.
Oh yeah, you can only shoot so many limited shots.
Yeah. Now it's basically unlimited. Like the cameras are rated, most shutters are rated for 400,000 shutters. And so it's like, just shoot everything, trial and error. Like you dial left, dial right. You can go up in your shutter speed, down, put it on a tripod, different time of day, move your ISO. That's how I mastered manual. Like, hey, I know I need ISO 100. I know it's a fast moving subject. You shoot it slow. You just shoot everything. It's like you could do cars. I did cars, flowers. This alley I lived, like we had a back alley in this house. And I would just be out there every day. Right when I get home from work, or jump outside, and I'd be shooting little things in the alley, like bugs and flowers and cars and all kinds of stuff. So, hey, shoot everything, and then anything that comes your way, like if you're passionate about it, just say, hey, can I shoot that for you? And kind of go from there. Learn what you like, and then learn how to shoot just about anything. So when the time comes, because say if you're just a wedding photographer or a sports photographer, if you know, hey, I've done fast moving, I know I need to change the settings to this. Or, hey, the bride's not moving fast right now, but it's low light, I need to change the settings to this. So just when you've kind of tried a little bit of everything, hey, what do I need to do to get a good image, or to get the image I want? And that's kind of where the most important thing is as a beginner, is learning what all the different settings do. Because you're never going to be in the same exact shooting environment when it comes to like clients. You're going to be kind of exposed to different areas, and it's going to happen. They're going to expect you to just take a picture and it come out perfect. So if you can expose yourself to poor conditions in a controlled environment where you're not being held up to a standard, you know how to react. So that's kind of where I learned a lot, was just messing around and taking pictures of almost everything. That's advice for the gear, for the mechanics part of it, how to function. Gear wise, like we said, don't get too crazy. Buy something solid and kind of master it and go from there. Business wise, there's so much to start. It's so much to start. Just to remember, everyone sells themselves short, in the beginning for sure. It's like I remember I was charging like I think $125 for an hour with like 30 pictures. It's just kind of up out of this world if you hear that right now. But I was even asking my wife, I'm like, am I worth this much? Like this is a lot of money. It's only 1 hour. I'm making $125 an hour. Now you look at it, it's like, okay, from the time that you first engage this client to the time that you deliver and say we're done, there's a lot more of hours and work that goes into all that. Mm-hmm. The booking, the planning, the location, taking the pictures, editing, delivering, all that goes into it. So that 125 per hour that the client hears is realistically like 8 to 10 for you for just that one shoot. So it kind of starts to dial back. So understand that there's a whole process. Like photography is probably one of the most process businesses that there is. It's not like a service where, you go, you eat, you leave. There's a whole process to it, and one person is responsible for all that stuff. So
yeah, and I know a lot of people, some photographers asking me like, should I raise my prices, right? After maybe a couple of years in business, I'm like, well, you really have to reevaluate what your goal is, right? Because I've seen photographers who do very well at a lower market. Well, they do hundreds of shoots, but they enjoy doing that. And then some people where they just do high luxury. So again, I guess depending on what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like if you love high luxury, then do that, right?
Yeah.
Or if you just want to stick, and maybe you have a full-time job and you just want to do this part-time, that's totally fine. But on the other hand, again, it's like we're providing a service that it's hard to get from anyone else. Like, no one can just pick up a camera and do great, amazing shots, especially on a wedding day where there's more than just taking photos, right? Like you said, we're not done after the wedding day. We still have to edit and, cull the photos, still communicate with the clients, understanding the timeline. There's so much other stuff that goes into it.
Logistics.
So yeah, but you probably hear that all the time, or like maybe you're at a wedding. Oh, he just takes photos. Like the photographer, all he does is take photos.
Sometimes we're the MC, sometimes we're the wedding coordinator. Like, oh man.
Yeah, but they don't know behind the scenes that goes on, right? Of us, all the prep that goes into it, like the gear we have to prep, right? Then like the redundancy again, going back to backing up the files, and then how do we deliver the thing? So there's. So when I was going back to my point, I was like, yeah, charge accordingly to all the things you do, because it is a luxury for most people. Like, like don't be scared of like increasing your prices depending on where your level is, because it is like, it's a service that, we can't charge you more, right? You know what I mean? Just like any vendors on the wedding day, like they bring a ton of experience. So that too, like don't forget about your experience. But yeah, like it's just, I think a lot of photographers that I've met over the years, they kind of have a fear. Of like, I'm scared of raising my prices.
Yeah, and at the same time too, you want to stick to like a price where you're comfortable, but also you also don't want to be attracting bad clients either. So sometimes it's just you got to find that there's a really it's a teetering balance. It's just like too far one way, it can get out of control. And yeah, it's just, I think what's most important is that you have to still be happy at the end of the day when you come home. Like, I'm not saying that money wise. I say you have to be content with yourself and what you're doing, money aside, but you also have to be able to, have a decent amount of income. You can't do it for little to nothing, because it's, at that point, it's maybe a little, not so much passion, but just, I don't know what to call it, but yeah, you have to, you can't do it completely for free all the time. Like, there's a certain time for that. I definitely did like 30 free shoots before I started charging, and I learned from all those 30. I said, okay, moving forward, where are we going? But yeah, business side for a beginner is just the first most important thing about your business is how good are you at your craft, and what is that level of experience and that level of knowledge worth? So that's the first starting point. So I've told this to a couple people before. If you are not ready, you're not ready, but it's okay. You can learn from there. You can grow from there. You just have to acknowledge the fact that you're not ready and kind of say, okay, this is where I'm at, but I want to learn and get to the next level to where you can start charging, and then start charging more and more and more. But yeah, that's the best advice I could give any beginner, is to be fully ready to take the next step before you take the next step, because you can buy the best camera and lens and flash and do horribly on a wedding day for sure. But, and then you can't really take that back. And then at that point, that's the face of your business. It's like, that's where you started. There's an image of you somewhere. So yeah, get as the best you can get, best equipment you can get for what you can afford, master that. And then once you've mastered it, then offer it to someone. Yeah.
Awesome. Great advice. Let's talk about maybe about how to attract more clients, how to get more bookings. Because that's another popular question that I always get asked. What's your thoughts on marketing and how to, attract the right clients?
So I did most of my first 100 shoots were all word of mouth. And that's, to me, that says a lot because it started with one and it just kind of caught fire. It just went from there. And that's my main approach. I have the one marketing thing I ever did was the wedding wire and the knot, and it didn't work out because of time constraints and getting into it, whatnot. I think I just really needed somebody who knew marketing because, we get into learning photography, editing, and all the other stuff. It's marketing is it's a whole department. It really is. And I'm horrible at it, to be honest. But my word of mouth clients love my work, so I can imagine if I did a little more marketing, it'd probably get crazy, like yourself. I know your calendar probably looks crazy as it is, but marketing's important. Word of mouth is just as important. So if you can say, hey, I'm just starting out, but I'm doing this and that, and offer it to one person, and just tell them hey, if you hear anyone else that needs a photographer, let them know. I'm learning, but I can help out and kind of go from there. Yeah, that's your first step of marketing for sure. It's word of mouth. Absolutely.
I think, especially if you're starting out, I think, in my opinion, is focus on the client experience. Yes. Like you were saying, if you can get clients to refer you and get as many referrals in the beginning, is just gonna keep spreading. Yeah. But again, it's about focusing on providing the best service because it is what it is. Clients will only trust other people that recommend you. It's just the way it is in this industry. Even especially with weddings, that's just the way that it's hard for them to trust. It's just someone they met or they just Googled. They're still gonna have to do a lot of research on you. Unless it was a referral, it's a little bit more of a higher probability that they're gonna book you. So that's the biggest thing I think a lot of young photographers have to learn is how can I really know the couple or really connect with them, and to the point where they probably like me because of me, and then eventually if you provide amazing service, they'll refer their friends and family who's getting married too.
Yeah. So. And then coming off of that too, it's what new photographers don't understand, but they should understand is that when you go to the Apple store, you know what you're going to get when you walk in. So you understand, hey, I'm going here for this, and this is I know what I'm going to get. Same thing, you go to the grocery store, this is how it works, right? So on our end, there's no written path as to how it works, and the only ones who know that is us. As the middleweight photographers, we know, hey, we try to get the booking, try to get them to confirm a session, do the session, edit it, send it out, deliver it. The customers do not know that. They just say, hey, I want pictures, tell me what to do, kind of thing. And that's where it kind of gets difficult for a new photographer, especially me. I didn't know where to start. I said, I just wanted to offer. I said, okay, plain and simple, you want to kiss her ass a little bit. You got to say, okay, how do I get this person to trust me to take their pictures? I have to be as, transparent. I have to be on top of it and provide the best service, like you said. And that's just as important, if not more important, than actually taking the pictures. You cannot get to the photo session without having provided the best customer, experience. So, and that's extremely important. I wish I would have learned that earlier on, and I wish, I could have had it a little more dialed in, which you can't really. I mean, what book do you buy that teaches you that?
Yeah, unless you have sales experience. So I had some a good amount of sales experience before I got into wedding photography. So I kind of already knew that coming in. So I kind of used it to my advantage. But definitely, the way I look at it, it's in my approach, my vision, it's always to provide the same service is if you were going to Disneyland. If you go to Disneyland, everyone's happy. They take care of you. I mean, it's immaculate, right? And that's why you pay that price, the tickets. So
yeah, exactly.
It's expensive for a reason.
But you go in there and you know what you're gonna get.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other thing too, going off of that, a bad encounter if a customer does not like how you are, if you don't give the right image off the bat, it will hold forever. Like that customer will not come back.
Oh yeah.
I've had a couple other photographers ask me like, hey, I told them they needed a deposit of the whole amount right now, and I'm like, did you ask what kind of pictures they wanted? Like that you're asking for money up front. Like you haven't even done the how are you? Like and I saw the message thread. And I'm like, well, man, you know, I'm being honest. Like, you're kind of rude. I'm like, all right, yeah, send me $400 and we can talk after.
Oh
and
my God, that's crazy. That's crazy. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, it's $400 if you want to book. Let me know. And I'm just like, no.
Wow.
Yeah, it's far out. It's far out. But yeah, you're customer service. You're the booking agent. You're the photographer, and you have to remember that from the beginning. The very first words are so crucial to how far you're gonna go.
That's wow.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's wild.
Yeah,
I've never heard that before. That is
and
wild.
I'm just like, it's okay with some things. Like, you know, I have my sister-in-law. She's like 15 and she's doing nails, and she's like, she puts her prices like, hey, let me know if you want to book. That's different. You know you're getting a product. But this is a full-on service. You know that they have to. There's no, like I said, there's no written understanding of how it works. And most photographers are different. Like some people use Honeybook. Some people have websites. Some people it's just Cash App or whatever
man, like some people just they either, and I kind of want to actually touch on this. This will probably be our last topic here, but let's talk about Instagram and websites, because I've actually met some photographers and it's really interesting to me that they don't have a website. And they complain because it's like, oh, I'm not getting any bookings. Again, everyone's different, but in my opinion, I think everyone should have a professional looking website for many reasons. Like if you're going to run ads, if you're going to run Google ads or even Instagram ads, like how are you going to link your website? Because the end goal is to have them fill out a contact form. That's the ultimate goal. So how are you going to do that if you just have an Instagram account? I mean, I know some people are successful like that, but I think if you really want to level up or separate yourself from some other people, like you have to have a website, right? So what's your thoughts on having a professional website?
It's an absolute must. You have to. I mean, realistically, I think I pay like $400 a year, which is one photo session. And that pays for the experience. That is my store. You know, that's where people know it says secure payment method. Like that's where people are like, hey, this is an actual thing. It's not just a random message where, hey, Zell me this. That sounds so sketch.
Oh, especially on Instagram. I mean, there's so many scams right now.
Yeah, no way. No way am I going to ask a wedding client can you Zell me $3,000 for a wedding right now? Like, no. like I wouldn't do it myself. Like, you know, I want that little lock next to where I'm typing in my credit card number, and I can go back to that website and hold them accountable. You know, so it's 100% must. It's $400 for a year of a website. Will pay for itself. You know, it's just not even a question. Honestly, at this point, you should have it, and you're adding into that experience of, hey, I'm, like I said, going to the grocery store. You know, you go to the register, you pay, you leave. You know, you can come back and say, this is the register I paid at. It's kind of the whole store. So yeah, I think 100% must. It's even if you cancel it after a year, if it didn't work out. It's only $300-$400. You know, some of them are even cheaper. Sometimes you can get a half off deal. Yeah, it's like $200. Like that will set you apart. And I will say for me personally, my bigger bookings skyrocketed from the point that I had a website. Yeah, 100%, because it was more legitimate. Yeah,
exactly.
It's not just a chat on Instagram.
Exactly.
Yeah, and no one's gonna send you $5,000 in a chat on Instagram. I'd love to see it. You know, I wish it worked that way, but they want a contract. I mean, that's a whole nother topic. But contract and a receipt. You know, where is this?
Yeah, exactly. And I think also too, like I think maybe the reasons why some people don't want to, have a website is just, oh, it's too complicated. Like, I don't know how to make a website. But, I mean, I think the very first platform I used was Wix. It was just easiest thing. Like, I mean, they have now even, I have Wix, even nowadays, like, it's so easy because of the templates. All you do is plug and play. It's almost like just dragging like images and dragging text. I mean, you can just use the template they have, and it looks good. It
takes time, a little bit of time. You know, just effort. But it's a store. You have to remember that people think, oh, it's my website. It's not your Instagram profile. It's a store, and you're building, it may not be a physical store, but you have to build everything just as a digital store. So it takes some time, but 100% worth it. Like right now, like if I have a booking, I send it to my website. This is all the info is right there. Your pricing, availability, at like live availability.
Yep.
Like that's so much easier than, have you ever had to do the text where it's like, oh, this is my availability, and cross out Sunday afternoon at 1:30 p.m. and leave all the other ones open? No way.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I don't think we have enough time to talk about all the other innuendos about the websites. But one thing I would say though is like, if you really want to go like, want to charge more, increase your prices, that's one way to increase your prices, to having a legitimate website that shows off your work, your portfolio, right? Because one thing I find on Instagram is like, I don't know if it's just now it's changing, but it seems like more people are just wanting more reels. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I even for me, like I do post photos, but I don't get as much engagement anymore.
Yeah.
Videos are just taking over. So like, how can you show off your work on Instagram when people don't even like pay attention to that anymore? So, I tend to just send my website instead of them even just following me on Instagram, which is still cool. But again, going back to like raising the prices, like, I mean, if they know you have a website, I was like, okay, you must be legit.
It must be established. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's like I said, they don't know this, but that $300-$400 a month, it's really nothing.
Yeah.
Like compared to like the how should I say, there's more of a legitimacy when you have a website like that. It's they can go there, they don't know how much it costs. It's like, $400, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but what you're getting from it, the professional, it's like bigger than a business card. That's your digital store. If you may not have an actual location yet, you may not be a corporate or LLC, but you have something official, and this shows you on the World Wide Web. It's not just Instagram.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
it's key.
So key, because I mean, there's so many things you can do on a website. You can, show off a whole album, your portfolio. You can, of course, an about page about yourself, because people want, especially weddings. I feel like always want to learn about you. You know what I mean? They want to see your personality, your style, like your approach, right? Because what I find with wedding clients, they're very specific what they want. With family photos, I think it's not as much, but when it comes to weddings, because they're investing so much money, right? They're very kind of like very specific, and that's why they'll reach out to like 10, 20 photographers. You know what I mean? So, and again, that's if you're trying to compete. Like,
especially California, it's so competitive, extremely competitive.
Exactly.
But
I mean, definitely. But man, thank you so much, Eric. It was a good conversation. I mean, we could talk forever about photography and the business of photography. We'll definitely have like another episode. Talk about maybe the editing side, because I know that's another topic. With the technology now,
there's so much.
I'm really excited actually to have an episode about that, because an AI for sure, and then you have like even for video side, and then even for like Topaz, Luminar. I mean, it's technology is insane. So super excited to like have you back on next time. But thank you so much. We learned a lot about you, and also about your experience. I mean, you have so much knowledge that I think a lot of people can learn from the video and the podcast. So if you guys haven't done so, we do have a YouTube channel. It's also called Photos by Mikey. So subscribe to that YouTube channel, but this will also be broadcasted on podcasts on Spotify, Apple, and Google. So, all right, guys, thank you guys for listening and watching. We'll see you guys on the next one.